All right, good day, hi, and welcome. So I'm about to pack up because I love it down here from the hours of 8 o'clock to supper time, and it's almost supper time. But I got to show you guys something first before we get into it. It's going to have to do with Elvis. My mom, God rest her, she passed away in 19, uh, 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 2014, right? And my mom was like most baby boomer women when they were girls. Elvis was the rage. Like, I mean, the rage. So I'm going to show you what I've been doing. So, oh, look at that. Guys, I found a floor in here. So, yeah, the bed is still broken and there's guitars all over the place. I don't know if it, I get that thing to focus. 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 Might be too dark to focus. But anyway, so I'm kind of like getting everything set up. But one of the things I had bought my mom a lot of art supplies, but my mom already had a lot of art supplies because so I showed you some of her paintings in the past and stuff like that, and they were really, really fantastic. So I still got all these art supplies here that were up in the art room. Can't quite see the house because it's blurry through there, but the thing right there, that's the house, my dad's house. It was my mom and dad's house, but now it's just my dad because my mom's no longer with us. And there's some more art supplies in here. There's some of her old brushes and stuff like that. And I took up painting myself, and of course, you can see I got some of my paintings in my cool lamp, and I got some paintings there. I got that painting up there that I did. Got some cool paintings over there, but also in the art room, I didn't know what it was, and I didn't just chuck it when the chaos of moving. This bag was there, and I figured it might be more art supplies and stuff like that. So I started finding like let's see, you know, like crocheting stuff and all that, right? No problem. But I found a ton of my mom's Elvis stuff, and just give you an idea, like like I'm gonna know so much about this man. What an iconic figure. Yeah, Elvis had his problems, but growing up when I was a little kid. All honesty, even though I'm not the biggest Elvis fan in the world, it was probably between him and Jimi Hendrix who inspired me to play guitar. You know what I mean? Like because of Elvis. Like I say, my mom was just obsessed with Elvis, and this stack here kind of proves it. Yeah. My mom's favorite actors were Mel Gibson and what was the other guy? The guy in Bedazzled. I can't believe I'm brain fart. Brandon Fraser. They were number two and number three, but the top guy was uh, definitely Elvis. And I think for musicians, it was like Elvis. She was a fan of Elvis, the Monkees, and then the Beatles. So she was more of a Monkees person than a Beatles person, and whatever. But Elvis was the top dog. So what I'm looking forward to is going through all that and sharing that with you. I found some postcards that were like the Elvis. You have to understand like how big Elvis actually was. Like it's unfathomable to us younger generation. I'm a Gen Xer, and even I got the tail end of Elvis, right? So I'm like I'm a little kid around a couple of years before he dies, right? And my mom talked to Muhammad Ali. Muhammad Ali called our place. I've told this story a few times before. But my mom wrote Muhammad Ali because he was at the funeral. And, like all the conspiracies, no, Elvis is alive, all that. And she wrote him and he called and he said, no, I was there. Trust me, he's deceased. Muhammad Ali called my mom twice and then he sent her a whole bunch of Islamic stuff and whatever, because he was Muslim, right? So he was more looking for a convert, I guess. But my mom just wanted confirmation, and it blew me. It speaks to the character of Muhammad Ali, to like somebody in Western Quebec, up in Northern Canada, to him, like, and he takes the time, and so that's really cool, right? But no, he said Elvis was dead. He saw him in the casket. He's dead. You know what I mean? So, like anything. And my mom, like Elvis was something that, it was her childhood. It was her go to, again, the Elvis craze, like the Beatles craze and stuff like that. us younger generations, you have to understand the music industry back then wasn't like it is now. Like now there's so many bands. I could probably name 100 bands you've never heard of. And those bands could probably, when I listen to like a band like say like Encore or something like that, totally different from Elvis, right? Kind of EDM metalcore, whatever, 7-string guitars, all that stuff. They're like, oh, these are the bands that influence stuff, and I'm like, other than maybe about 2 of them, I have no idea who these other bands are, so I can go seek them out. But back in the day, it wasn't like that. It was the record industry only had a handful of acts when you really compare it today. So there wasn't that many superstars, hence why they got so big so fast, because they really didn't have any competition, right? So there was 2 forms of music really that you could take part in, and that was go to a local live show and whoever was there playing, that's what you listened to, right? And it could be old time country. It could be, some new disco-oriented funk band. It could be a blues band. It could be a rock band. It could be whatever. And later on, like heavy metal and the hard rock and the crazy stuff we got now. But back then, there wasn't really a lot of choice, okay? You could listen to Elvis. You could listen to John Denver or Neil Diamond, and they were huge. But outside guys like that, and the Beatles and Rolling Stones and whatever, like, there was lots of bands, but most of the bands never hit that status and probably never will. Maybe Taylor Swift went past them all by now. But you got to think of, because of the monopoly of the music industry at the time, there were only so many bands and acts. Sure, there was thousands of them, but to put it into perspective, okay, there was thousands of bands that you could probably hear of, and maybe a few hundred that you'd ever see on TV or hear on radio or something like that back then, right? To give you an idea, as of current today, if you add up every from the most complicated instruments such as like the French horn and the violin, and some of the craziest guitar stuff you've ever heard, right down to like playing the triangle and a recorder, which a recorder can get pretty hard to play. I got one right here. I could attest to that, right? There was really like about out of 8 billion people on this planet, there's about 1 billion to 2 billion people that play some sort of a musical instrument. How many of them do you know, right? So even if you take on like the daily thousands of bands, like teenagers that make their first recording and put it on Spotify or whatever, a garage band or whatever it's going to be on. Guys like me, with my own recording, stuff right there. Like most people are never ever going to ever hear us, right? So if you could hit Elvis level fame in this day and age, you're still probably going to be one of the most famous people in history. And yet, with that said, if you go up to the average Zoomer or Gen Alpha or even late millennials and say, what did you think of Elvis? A lot of them are going to say, never heard of him. And it blows my mind because when I was a kid, you could go to the Soviet Union, you knew about Elvis. You could go to Madagascar, they knew about Elvis. You could go to Papua New Guinea, they knew about Elvis. You could go to Australia, you could go to any Antarctica, the penguins knew about Elvis. Everybody knew about Elvis. He was so big. So it's no doubt that the fan base would have been so big. I'm sure my mom probably wrote Elvis a million times as a teenage girl, like all the other teenage girls, right? But the thing is that the Elvis story is a fascinating story. It's a travesty and a tragedy in a lot of ways. Stuff that has, taken so many great musicians and stuff from us, the drugs, the alcohol, the abuse and stuff like that. But there's also like an inspiration to the story. There's like, the man was just interesting. I know enough about him, I've seen enough documentaries and I went through my Elvis phases, so to speak, where not listening to everything, but just kind of like, yeah, he was on the TV all the time, whether they were talking about him or you were watching him sing, right? So I just kind of glanced through some of the Elvis stuff in there, and we're going to go through it in later videos. Not today because it's about supper time, and that kind of takes priority. I got like squirrel brain when it comes to supper time, so it's like I said, if they had like a giant human sized like mouse trap, and they put a piece of cheese on it, I'd be a dead man, just because no squirrel brain, right? It's like, oh, cheese, snap. So yeah, so to save me from myself, other people help feed me, and don't worry, I contribute, but I let them do the cooking and stuff like that because they're better at it, and it's like it's so worth it. So last night we had barbecue chicken. Might not have been as good as some of the hamburgers Elvis liked, but it was pretty damn good. Oh, it's so damn good. Sorry for the language there. I know a lot of people that are Elvis probably don't like bad language. So, but Elvis was great. He was the right guy at the right time with the right image. Like you look at what he does today, it's like it's almost a character of itself, but to be insulting or anything like that. But it just like it was so like if you were to do that today, it'd be more of a spoof, right? Like the way he danced and stuff. But you have to understand, nobody did that back then on live TV. And when he started doing the hip shake and stuff like that, that was considered way over the line. That was edgy. That was risky. But that was Elvis, right? So the people that loved Elvis, everybody that was his friends, from his bodyguards to family to all that, they all kind of say the same thing about Elvis. He was the most wonderful man, but he was a tyrant when he was on drugs. Like everybody that goes on drugs, they say the same thing about Eddie Van Halen, Jim Morrison, Jimi Hendrix. So nobody ever said anything bad about him when he was whacked out on drugs. I think he was the only one that didn't lash out at anybody. But most of the Lexi Leho, if you want to get into the metal world, the guys, I was listening to an interview there from the Sons of Bonham or whatever. They're like, well, like the last few months, like they knew he wasn't going to make it. You know what I mean? And again, such talent and drugs and alcohol, right? But the interesting thing is that these people always leave a legacy that like how you don't realize how much a generation is affected by the pop culture until you're kind of on the outside looking in. So the bands that I was so big on and stuff like that when I was a teenager, like for example AC/DC, the first big live concert that I ever saw, not the first band I ever seen live because it was like some local band, right? But like for me growing up, like when I was a teenager, or even just before, around when I was a teenager, my uncle right over there owned the hotel motel that was there for 140 years now. Now it's a hole in the ground. But anyway, yeah, I go in and I hear live players and stuff like that. There's one guy, Jan. He's still around, and I remember seeing him play House of the Rising Sun when I was I'm pretty sure I was a teenager by this time. And it stuck with me. Like he just, and him and I got to play it together a few years ago at the fish fry up here, and it was just like, Jan, and I told him, sorry, I said, Jan, when I was a kid, I walked in, you had this cowboy hat on, you had your that Telecaster you've been playing since the dinosaur age, and you went up there and you just belted out House of the Rising Sun. I said, it'd be an honor if I could play that song with you. And he was like, Mikasa Sukasa, right? And we did, and it was great. Just acoustic guitars. Now, I think I was playing the mandolin or whatever, but it was just like, just to hear him, it was cool, right? But that left a stain on me as a kid, right? And he was like, nobody's ever heard of it. This guy's just from my small town, you know what I mean? So if somebody like that, can have an influence on you, and then the next real big band I see is not Jan, but it's AC/DC, right? And with LA Guns, and they're open up. I'll never forget when they played For Those About to Rock. It's like you see these big battleship cannons start coming out of the stage, and it takes the whole song for them to come out. And when they finally reach the end and they come to a stop, the cannon comes to a stop, the lights go out, you hear fire, and all you saw, it was so loud. You felt it before you heard it, and like paint fell from the ceiling of the Civic Center. And I mean, there's like 30,000 people in here, right? And it was just these big pyro flashes out of these big barrels. And then, and Angus is doing his thing. I remember the first time I saw, like, it was for the Blow Up Your Video tour, where the first song they played was Heat Seeker. And then you see this missile coming out of the stage, and it's like, okay, that's cool. And then Angus Young jumps out of it, and it's like, I always thought the SG guitar, because I hadn't seen an SG Gibson guitar like I have the two of them. But again, that's why I have them, is probably because of his influence. But when he jumped out, and I was like, I saw the guitar and I saw him, and I'm like, I thought that guitar was huge. No, he's just really small. And the one he's in the schoolboy uniform, which I think was his sister's idea. The AC/DC, I think, was also his sister's idea. She looked at it bad as AC/DC, and then they came up with all kinds of stuff, whatever. But that left us that I was like, after that, I'm like, you darn right, I'm going to be playing guitar. You darn right, I'm going to rock out. I'm going to try to make it to those levels. But sadly, most people never get to that level, right? Because you have to understand what gets you there. And it's back in the day, you know, you were playing in a bar like Jan would have been playing, or myself, or whatever, and maybe a record producer would walk in and say, hey, I really like that, going to sign that guy. That does not happen anymore. So that's a bygone era, doesn't happen. There could be the exception to the rule, but in general, no, that's not going to happen. So the thing is most people are never going to hit Elvis level. It's like Taylor Swift or Megadeth or whatever. I guess Linkin Park is still like the most popular metal band out there. I was listening to Rick Beato the other night talking about like the metal genre is still globally a small genre in comparison to everything, because it's not promoted, right? Like the way like somebody like Taylor Swift, and not knocking her or whatever, but is promoted is by the industry. Is like, okay, her music will appeal to say 80% of people, right? So they're going to put money behind that. They're going to put PR behind that, and that's going to make you big, right? That's what they did with Elvis. That's what they did with the Eagles. That's what they did with everybody, right? The Grateful Dead took a different approach to it, which I love their approach, but they never hit that status of like the Eagles. Maybe in the day, yes, but they never got up to where they could go, because they were outside the system a bit, right? Where what they did is they didn't care if you got their music for free, just come and see us live, right? And then you got bands like Tool, for example, where you go see them live, you can't bring a cell phone, which blows my. I could do it. I'm a Gen Xer. Like, you know what we did when we went to concerts. Okay, well, the Boomers, they went to they would bring things like flowers and stuff to throw at the acts on the stage, whether it was Boney M or it was Elvis, and they would throw flowers on the stage, whatever, and wreaths and stuff like that. They would do that kind of stuff. Us Gen Xers, especially those of us that like metal, well, we emptied our pockets, number one. It's like, okay, I'm going into the mosh pit. Here, hold my stuff. You get your buddy to hold your stuff, or the girls would hold the stuff, because they weren't stupid like us young guys going into the mosh pit. You put in your mouthpiece protector so he didn't lose any teeth, because it was mosh pits, right? So it was a little different. Especially you didn't want any idea when you did the stage dive, right? Because there's enough witnesses. You just didn't want any proof. So yeah, no ID. Yeah, no ID. And I remember that when I saw Pantera. It was Skid Row headlining Pantera and Killer Dwarfs. Killer Dwarfs. I used to talk to Russ Dwarf all the time, because he used to play in Ottawa. The Killer Dwarfs used to play in Ottawa all the time, and they were a really small band for the time, right? But they had a cult following. They still do. They were a Canadian band. Russ Dwarf, the guy's like 4'0", but he's like the coolest guy ever, and he comes out on the stage on a tricycle and stuff like that, and he does headstands and all that. They'd bring him out at the beginning of the stage. Two people would be like have like this crate that said "danger" on it, and they'd put it out in the center of the stage, open it up with a crowbar, and then run away, because like they were scared, because Russ Dwarf was about to come out, and he'd come out singing and doing all the crazy stuff we do. He'd jump into the audience while I was singing. We'd throw him around like a football. Like, it's like it was like a beach ball because he was so small and so light. We just tossed him all over the place, right? The guy was great. And then I was like, I went and seen Skid Row, and there was this band called Pantera. I'd never heard of them. Who are they, right? Little did I know the effects they would have on the metal scene. And Skid Row made it really big. So I get there, Killer Dwarf's out there, Russ Dwarf recognizes me. He pulls me up on stage. Quick, jump, the guards are going to get you. Ah. I go flying in, land on my head a few times into the crowd. That was fine. This band, Pantera, comes out. There's this crazy looking guitar player and this skinhead singing. And this guy's got like this big orange beard, and he's on a freaking roadie case getting pushed along, playing this really cool riff to a song called Walk. I'm like, this is the craziest thing I've ever seen. I didn't know what to make of it. I didn't know if I liked them or not at first, but by the end of their set, I was like, I love these guys. These guys are great. So I got on the stage once, but then dived off again, landed on my head again a couple more times into the mosh pit before the security guards could get me. Because back in the day, the barrier was really close to the stage, but after a few incidents with like the Rolling Stones and Pearl Jam, with the barriers collapsing and people actually dying under the weight of all these people rushing the stage, on the stage, people died doing that. So that's why you see stages now, they're back 30, 40, 50 feet from the actual stage. Plus it protects the talent, right? Later would we find out with Dimebag Darrell that it's probably important that security, the man got shot on stage and, God rest him, So I'm sure Dimebag Darrell and Elvis are probably jamming as we speak. That would be a very cool jam, wouldn't it? Dimebag Darrell doing his thing and Elvis doing his thing, and try to see if they can make it work. That'd be awesome. That would be awesome. Anyway, Skid Row comes on. I get up on the stage, okay, and Sebastian Bach's like, let's see this kid kill himself off the monitor. He goes, go, 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 go. So I run. I fly past Scotty Hill with the guitar player, and I can hear like that. And I jump. I don't know. They probably never remember because they saw this every night, right? This was just another stupid kid jumping off a stage. But they don't understand how much I enjoyed that. They'll never understand like how I'm 52 and I could smell the sweat of the crowd, and I could still see the faces of the guys that, like a flying elbow, or I had cowboy boots on the time. I still feel bad about this to this day. It was on not the first stage dive, but probably about the third or fourth one. I went, somehow I ended up feet first. I usually always went like sideways so I wouldn't hurt anybody, right? But somehow, because the security guard almost got me. So I ran, and I guess, I don't know, instinct or whatever, I went kind of boots first, and there was a guy stuck in the crowd like this, and both boots hit him right in the face. I didn't hit him hard, but I felt so bad. I was like, sorry, buddy. But by that time, they were already throwing me off the crowd surfing, whatever. And I never got to apologize to the guy because I told my friends after, we got to go find this guy. I kicked him in the head. I didn't mean to kick him in the head. But what a great concert. What a great concert. And it's like, that left a stain on me. So can you imagine, to get back to Elvis, I got to wrap this up because, it's like talking about Elvis is fun, but I talked about food, right? Yeah. Food's funner. But I will be looking at, because again, I miss my mom. Everybody misses their kin when they go, right? So, but it's like it meant so much to my mother, right? And I know that by making a video like this, those that'll get it will get it right away. It's not a generational thing at all. It's in the sense of that it's different for any generation. Some kid right now is listening to Baby Shark going, he's going to be 52 years old one day going, oh, do you remember the days of Baby Shark? Anyway. I never had that one song that annoyed the shit out of my parents like that. We didn't have that. Like, I grew up on Kiss. I mean, that's what I listened to as a little kid was Kiss. And I saw Kiss twice. Once for Hot in the Shade without the makeup, and then at the Blues Fest a couple of years, or about a decade ago or more, with the makeup. So that was cool. That was really cool. Kiss was a big influence on me because Phantom of the Park, what a great movie. It was really horrible. But if you're a kid, you're like 7 years old or 6 years old. That's fantastic, right? Yeah. So like it was a different time. So we didn't really have those kids songs like you do today, where there's so many kids songs. Like the Magic School Bus or whatever. We didn't have that, right? We had it was kind of like Sesame Street, Mr. Rogers, the the Jolly Giant, or what was it called? What was it called? The one with the Draft Jerome the Friendly Giant. Sorry, the Friendly Giant. We had him, and we had Mr. Dress Up and stuff like that, and then later Fred Penner or whatever. And you had like a couple of songs, like the probably most noticeable song. Somebody coming in here? Where's that light here? What? I'm all freaked out here. Is that just me? Oh, it's across the road. Okay. Like the highway's this way. It's not this way. It's like how are lights? Okay, I see what's going on here. Okay, yeah, he's just taking his trailer at Robert across the road there. So yeah. Oh yeah. Okay, yeah. Yeah. I see he's pulling into his house there now. But anyway, just to wrap up. But no, like every generation is going to have stuff that they staple their childhood to their youth to the, just the things that like gave you some grounding, and it was usually some sort of a musician or whatever. Now, mind you, again, so a lot of these musicians unfortunately turned out to be train wrecks in their lives. Maybe they couldn't handle the fame. I mean, Taylor Swift, say what you want about her, but she's, think of the fame level she's got, okay? And again, I couldn't really name you too many Taylor Swift songs. I know there's a Shake song other than that because that was just so popular. But you got it, whether you like her or not, you got to hand it to her that she, well, at least I don't, maybe I'm wrong on this, but she doesn't appear to be, I don't ever hearing that, oh, here's, Taylor Swift caught drinking and driving again. Oh, here's her pictures of her, like, shit-faced, passed out, on a toilet somewhere. Like, you just don't see that from, you saw that poor Britney Spears, that, like look at how fame got to her, and then all the stuff around her. And you hear about it, right? Well, Elvis was a lot more private, so you didn't really hear about the bad things as much until after he died. And that's when everybody, oh yeah, near the end. Because that's why it was such a shock when he died, because most people, thought the man angelic. You know what I mean? Like they really, really didn't understand. And this was the PR. Like like when Elvis would go into a burger joint, they'd close down the burger joint and everybody would have to leave so he could have his burger. What does that do to a man? You know what I mean? It's like, okay, good. I got the place to myself just so people don't, people like running up to you all the time and try to tear off your clothing and you name it, right? Yeah, what does that do to a person, right? Especially somebody growing up in an era, born in the early 40s or whatever. Like, you know what I mean? Like, what does that, like, no human being would be ready for that kind of stardom. Like, it would be, now, like, everything's like grandiose and everybody's self-absorbed. You got people like Twitch streamers where the boyfriend and the girlfriend will get into a feud because the girlfriend is getting more streams than him. You know what I mean? Like, this is a thing right now. I won't even go into it, but I'm like, just like, it's so shallow, but that's the big wave in their life. You know what I mean? Like, that's the, it's, for me, it was, being a punk kid, headbanger, stage diving off of a Skid Row stage and Pantera and stuff like that, and hanging out and high-fiving Russ Dwarf. You know what I mean? Like, that meant a lot to us kids. It meant so much. So I know Rick Beato put that, what happened to all the metalheads and stuff like that out. And great, fine. But, like, it's still there. The passion for it has not gone away. The venues have just changed. That's all. It's just changed. But what hasn't changed is the effect of somebody relating to a song, a music or style, or whatever. It's just because there's such, like, when Elvis was a thing, there wasn't as many bands, so people could really laser focus, hone in on this band that was popular. That, like, whoever the music industry wanted out front was out front. And then by the time you get to the late 70s, early 1980s, there's thousands of bands, so it kind of cheapens it a bit in the sense that, okay, well, you still get the starstruck fans, and you still do today, but where it used to be like say 1970 or 1980, or even 1970, okay, 1950s, the Beatles get off an airplane and it's just complete pandemonium, right? And when you also understand too, the crowds were so loud because the PAs weren't that loud enough, right? So it made these people sound a lot more, the crowd's louder than what they are. Now crowds, yeah, they scream and shout and all that, but they're not like hysterical. You know what I mean? Like crowds are like, yeah, that's great. They're not like, ah, like it's like, he looked over my head, my bald head, ah, like it's not like that, right? But you know what I mean? That's how fanatical people would get, because it was something that was not present in their lives anywhere other than in a handful of spots. And if you were lucky enough to and allowed to go to an Elvis concert, could you imagine all the families that, all these people that are, no, you ain't going, that's the devil. You ain't going there. I'm not picking on religion, but it was very, like it was very strict on stuff like that. A lot of parents were very strict on stuff like that. Hence why the boomers became more, more counterculture with the hippie movement and all that. That has a lot to do with it. I think it just, it was just too strict, their upbringings. But the thing about it was that it was still the same thing. Like, you had this guy presented to you doing something you've never seen before. You were entertained. You were, all this stuff. And then, just everything. This guy's great. This guy's great. Here's a picture. Here's a story. Here's a signature, whatever. And the glamour and all that stuff. And then back it up with the music, of course. And that's the other thing. Elvis is a phenomenal, like, I don't know how many songs he wrote himself, but his deliveries were great. Because a lot of the guys, Chris Christopherson, Elvis, Bob Dylan, all these guys, they kind of stole Frank Sinatra. You name it. A lot of them stole songs from each other, right? To one up, and there's too many to list. But you got to understand, back in the day, it's the same as like a band now that covers another band's song and does their version of it. But back then it was much more competitive. Now it's like it's done as a tribute. It's like, oh, we like this song, so like for Schwann's, a German band, they do like "Gimme Gimme" by ABBA. It's fantastic. It's the heavy metal version of it, right? Yngwie did it, you know what I mean? But they didn't do it with the idea, okay, we're just going to do it better, you know what I mean? Where back then it meant something to be the number one guy. And that meant competition, right? So Elvis had a lot of competition. How was Neil Diamond doing? How was Bob Seger doing? Bob Seger and Chris Christopherson. Like, you know what I mean? Like these guys, Bobby McGee. How many people covered Bobby McGee? You know what I mean? Chris Christopherson writes a song, everybody else makes it famous for him. Hopefully he made a lot of money on that because he deserves it, because everybody else, and maybe Chris Christopherson took it for somebody else. We don't know, right? But what I'm getting at is that I'm looking forward to showing all the Elvis stuff. And some stuff, it's like there's some letters there and stuff like that. And even myself, I don't know if I'll read them because, I'll keep them forever till the day I die because they were my mom's. But, I got a thing about that where it's like, that was meant for them. That was meant for my mom, not for me. You know what I mean? Not meant for the family. It's not, those are, there's birthday cards and stuff like that, whatever. So some of that stuff, it's like, okay, it's not my place to read stuff like that. It's kind of like I found like stuff for my grandmother and grandfather, like letters and stuff like that. What's in them, I don't know. You know what I mean? I'll put them aside. I probably won't read them just out of respect. You know what I mean? I might read some, if it looks like a birthday card, I'll read the birthday card, but if it's a private letter, no, I'll just put that aside. And maybe the future can read it and whatever, because I don't need that for me. You know what I mean? Like I don't need, like I've got like letters from old girlfriends and stuff like that from years ago. When I die, someone's gonna, they're probably just gonna chuck everything out. But if they don't, they're going through stuff. I don't care if they read them or not. But maybe the old girlfriends might care. You know what I mean? There's nothing that there's bad or anything like that. But you get what I'm saying, right? Something that meant something so much to people, like like letters between some of my mom's old friends and stuff like that. It's like, talking about Elvis, or whatever. Like I remember Nicole was like my mom's best friend. I don't even know if she'd still be alive or not, but yeah, they talked about Elvis all the time. I remember every time she would visit. It was my mom's best friend when they were kids, and she would visit us maybe once a decade or something like that, whatever. And I remember the Elvis would always come up in their conversations, right? We'd be at the kitchen table and everybody was sitting there, and suddenly they'd start talking and they'd start reminiscing as when they were kids, right? And Elvis, the Beatles, the Monkees, they would talk. That's what they talked about. And I'm sure they talked about a lot of other stuff, but that's what they talked about. And I'm like, so if they had letters, talk about that, it's like, okay, that's special. You know what I mean? I never wrote letters to my friends about metal. I just say, hey, check out this tape cassette bootleg I got. You're going to love this new band. Yeah, they're really crazy. Yeah, and stuff like that. And that's what we did. So, that, like, for a lot of people, it's weird to others of how we understood music versus how other generations understood music. But at the end of the day, it was all the same. It was just you found a connection somewhere that became really important in a part of your life. And again, like I say, we still don't realize to a great degree how pop culture has really the effects it has on a person, right? So that's the pop culture. But what about the people that are at the top of that pop culture, making that culture, Elvises and stuff like that? Like I'm sure you could pick any star out there, and at some point they get really obsessive fans and stuff like that, stalkers and all that, because of that effect, right? I'm not saying that's a good thing or a bad thing. Well, it's probably not a good thing. But what I'm saying is that that's to the level that it can influence. So this is at any era. So like now it's kind of like we've never had, it's option paralysis that we have for music now. But back then they didn't really have option paralysis. It was really a handful of bands that were allowed to go to the top. Okay, there might have been a few thousand of them, but it was only a few thousand up against, again, a billion musicians on the planet, right? So today we probably got a few 100 million bands around the world of, in music, like just around the world, right? Whether they're solo acts or whatever. You got guys like me in my living room here, doing acoustic songs, recording stuff, hopefully get you the song Pinto out very soon. It's gonna be a really cool guitar solo in that. And maybe that song might inspire somebody to play guitar. It'd be really cool if it did, because it'd be a cool song. Probably not the best first song to learn. It might be a little bit challenging. It's challenging for me, and I wrote it. Yeah, it's heartwarming to think about stuff like that, because it's just like in the world we live in right now with so much chaos and all that. It's the escape, but it's also I wouldn't say crutch. I don't want to use the word crutch, but it's kind of a tool to anchor your way through some of the chaos of modern living and stuff like that. And I think this translates throughout time. So, 50 years down the road, whatever music is being made then, maybe somebody talks about this crazy song they heard back in 2025 from the guy, in his kitchen somewhere. And it's just like, oh yeah, but he did this and he did that, and they idolize and they make me sound bigger than what I actually was. And, that wouldn't take much, but, but what I'm saying is that you don't know what it's going to lead to. So My mom's been gone 11 years now, and I'm finally going through that bag, and here's all this stuff, right? And it's like, oh, I didn't know that. Like I knew she was an Elvis fan, but I didn't realize it had that effect on her. So, and it's good. It's good. It's good. Really good. Anyway, speaking of good, you know what's really good? Food. Food is really good. I love food. Um, I love food so much. I'm actually going to end this video right now so I can go up home and eat because food is gooder. Food is gooder. All right. So anyway, I look forward to showing you all the Elvis stuff as I go through it. The other thing I'm doing in the house right now, because it is winters, is I'm basically, I got too much stuff. Yeah, I know. I got too much stuff. Every time you move, you realize all the junk you actually have, and it's just some stuff like you want to hang on to it, but you're like, do I really want to hang on to it? Like, do I really, really, really need all that? And I'm going to start making boxes of stuff that's going to be in a yard sale in the spring. A good time of year to do it. You're going to be stuck inside a little bit more. And I got tons of stuff that it's got to go. I got to start putting some stuff up for sale again. I do batches every now and then. It sits there, nobody ever buys it. And then it's like, okay, forget about it. But I'll try it again. So the idea is just to get rid of the clutter, right? Just get rid of the clutter. I still got all the stuff that I'm cleaning out and throwing out and all that, and that hasn't stopped at all. I'm going to probably tackle the barns tomorrow if I'm not at the school cleaning the school, but if I am at the school tomorrow, maybe it'll be Monday, but we'll see. But anyway, yeah, so you are going to get some Elvis stuff coming down the pike very soon. There's some fascinating artworks and stuff that's in there. It's like, oh, wow, that's great. So I can understand why my mom collected it. It's like, it's really nice stuff. I'm going to keep it. It's not for sale. It's I don't care the value of the stuff. It was my mom's, right? That's what I care about. So anyway, I'll leave it at that. So food time. Yeah. Squirrel brains kicking in. Need food. Gotta go. Talk to you later.